I hated being alive, and I don't say that. Like, I sat in the dark for months. I barely went to class. I knew I didn't want to be alive. Even if I died today, no one would care. And he was like, oh, you know, Sharon, you're never going to amount to anything. That you're just going to be a prostitute. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel any of those things. My trauma were my headlights. So that was what was guiding me in life. And I'm like, God, if you exist, I need you to help me. There's a level of help that can only come from God.
Yeah.
And He is the only one who knows you to that degree that He can be able to even take you out of that place. People who need help usually don't know how to ask for help.
Yeah.
So you have to exert yourself and just be like, I'm here. When I think about the love of God, there's nothing like it. I relate so deeply to being that one Kashi.
Yeah.
I have been that sheep for so many years, and God literally, for real, left the 99 for me. When the Bible says He is the potter and we are the clay, and you let Him actually mold you, He molds you into the version that heaven knows. The whole point of Christianity is that you struggle with it with God.
Yes.
You're not just now struggling alone.
wow, so
like,
good.
yeah, we are now struggling together. Me and God, we are dealing with this thing, and it's gonna take time. People who've seen my ratchetry, I'm sure they're like, hey, when is Sharon mwenye tulikuwa anapigana na watu deja vu?
Yo, what's up, good people, man? First, thank you so much for always joining us for the DJ Mo's podcast. We do not take it for granted, man. I'm always excited to be able to have wonderful guests joining me for conversations. People who are known, other people who are not known, but they are known in their circles. And, just being able to have genuine, honest conversations with them. So, man, as you continue digging in and enjoying the podcast, we'd like to encourage you to go ahead and support us, man. This is only possible through your love and through your support. Pray for us. Talk about us, but then also you can go ahead and go a step further and support us financially, and you can do that by our account number and the till number. They're all, is it till number? No, the pay bill number and the account numbers iko hapa hivi, si ndio? Please do go ahead and support us financially, because this encourages us, allows us to be able to pay our bills and to continue hooking you up with more great content, si ndio? Thank you so much for your love. In the meantime, man, let's continue in our conversations today hapa hivi on the DJ Mo's podcast. Yeah.
Oh.
I don't even introduce my guests, but
Oh, you don't?
wewe ni nani tukiendelea tu.
Okay. You don't want to do a formal introduction?
I never do formal introductions.
Okay.
Because just for the conversations tu ziende kuendelea. So wasi utupata kwa story zetu.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is so different. Ours is, hi guys, my name is... And
You can go ahead. Just do it as you would do it.
No. It's fine. I'm on your podcast, so let's do it your way. Yeah.
And you can ask me anything.
Okay.
If you've ever had, you can even turn this into like, I'm on your podcast, and so people know that I'm with, okay, let me just go ahead and do this. I'm with Sharon, representing Best Kept Secret. She is a good secret, because for me, God has finally revealed her to me, so I get to have conversations with her today.
We thank the Lord.
So how do you do it on your podcast? Because I don't introduce my guests.
Oh, ours is very structured, which I'm trying to lean like from that.
Yeah.
We are very like, hi guys, my name is Sharon. I do this, I do that.
Yeah.
And then now we talk about today, we're talking about this. Like, I usually have a topic beforehand. The guest knows, is briefed. They also prepare, and then now we talk.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is very different for me, but I like different. So let's get into it.
Okay, I think for me, from the genesis of when I started doing media, when I got into radio, I guess I didn't have a background in communication.
Yeah.
And so I was thrown in the deep end. And I think for me, I've always thrived in what I call chaos, organized chaos. Or like unstructured. So I'm like, why do things have to be done in a certain way?
Yeah.
Who says that that's the rule? And why can't we do it different?
Yeah.
So
I'm so different. Even as a person, I like structure so much. I thrive in structure. I thrive in routine. And I think it's even been I've been learning that it's detrimental to my relationship with God, because I have some sort of control issues. I'm like, okay, God, tunadu, like, see, you tell me where are we going, and then when we get there, what are we doing? And then when we get, after we do that, what are we gonna do after that? Like, I like to be in control, to know what's going on. So, and obviously with God, it's just like none of that. Control is not existing. As
he's the one in control.
He's the one in control, and I'm the one thinking that, oh yeah, I'm so in charge and I so know what I'm doing. I have no idea. So yeah, I'm trying to be less, controlling and structured and routine and all of these things. But
I think it's good. It's good in a way, because see, for me, like I've said, I guess I like pressure, which is not probably good. And I like working in unstructured spaces, because then it allows me to be creative. I think if I'm in a structured place, it restrains me. And like, I'm like, if there are structures, I just want to break them.
Were you a rule breaker?
No. In some way.
Okay.
In some way, like I can tell, like when I was in high school, I was in a day school, and so what I used to do was I used to work at the edge, so I'm not breaking rules, but I'm not conforming either.
Yeah.
So I'd always be at the edge. So for example, like now with our school uniform, so like in Aga Khan, we used to have like beige trousers, and everyone used to go buy their trousers from uniform distributors, and I hated them. So what I did, I went to my boys walikuwa na store Gikosh, and I told them, I say, please help me get a beige trouser that's comfortable, and that's trendy.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do. So the school cannot punish you for not having.
Still gray.
It's still beige in color.
Oh yeah, sorry. Beige.
So it's okay. Yeah, it's still beige in color, but it's comfortable for me, and I'm not necessarily conforming.
Yeah.
You get, so for the shoes, they had to be black. So what I would do with mine is they had to be black or brown. So mine were like black leather, but then the sole would be brown.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow. Yeah.
So
I see the edge. Yeah.
So I'm not breaking the rules. Niko tu hapo. You get, so, and for me, I thrive in that space.
Okay.
But I was saying, I think for you, the good thing is there's a balance. If we were all unstructured, then life would be very chaotic.
Yeah. It would.
There's a balance that you bring, for idiots like me
who... Yeah. I wouldn't say idiot, but like just less structured, more go with the flow.
Yes. Which I really do. Anyway, I really do appreciate it. Like now, my wife is like you. My wife is very structured. And she likes knowing things in advance.
Yeah.
Me, I'm that guy. I'll know things in advance. This is terrible. No, then I'll forget. Or I'll tell her like a day before.
Oh, tomorrow we're going here.
Tomorrow there's this that's happening.
No.
And she hates it. She's like, Mose, you're in communication. You're so poor at communication. But for me, it's because I thrive in
the chaos.
Yeah. And her, she thrives in the structured aspect.
Yeah.
So, and I think the balance that we have even with the kids is, with the kids, they know my wife is structured. So my wife will know, like, we're doing this at this time, this at this time, this at this time. With me, Daddy, what are we having for dinner? It's 5 o'clock. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know, but
whatever
we're going to eat.
Oh, no, I cannot. And I feel like opposites, kind of attract. And I'm more likely to attract a man that's like the opposite of me in that way. And that usually drives me crazy, because where is the flow? What's the flow? Where is it going? Where is it leading us to? I just can't go with the flow.
Yeah.
But it helps us who are structured and whatever to not take life so seriously as well, and to also just leave room for spontaneity and for all of those things, because when you're structured, there's no spontaneity, there's no like surprises, we've planned for every single thing, even the surprises we've planned for them.
You cannot be sprung up a surprise.
No, I've planned for the surprise. I know the surprise is happening, so it helps. Like you're saying, there's a good balance.
Yeah. Have you always, you asked me the same question, so have you always been like this as well?
No, I haven't. This is just an adult thing that I don't know where it has come from. But when I was when I was a child, when I was a teenager, I was wild. Like, I was crazy. I was out here doing some crazy things.
Yeah.
So in high school, like, I can't say that I was necessarily a rule breaker. I did break some rules, to be honest. I did. But I also grew up in a very sheltered environment. My mom was very strict. My dad a bit more lenient. So I didn't have the leeway to do whatever I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So when I went to high school, I was like, oh, my parents are not here. My mom's not here to be breathing down my neck. I can do whatever I want to do. I did everything I wanted to do. And then uni was even worse because now
you're free.
I'm free, and I have, I'm not going back home to my parents' house. I made sure, by the way, that I went the farthest away from them as possible. Sorry, Mom, I still love you. But my parents live in Rongai. So I went to Daystar in Athi River. I could have gone to Valley Road. And that was an option. And they were like,
in fact, you could have gone to Nazarene.
I did go to Nazarene because, like I said, my parents are very, they're very strict. They sheltered me a lot. So obviously, when I finished high school, their first instinct was to take me as close to them as possible.
Yeah, that's
so
a Christian uni.
Exactly. I went to Nazarene, a nice Christian uni. I only did one semester, and I told them I'm not going back there. I will stay at home if I have to stay home.
Oh, wow.
And then eventually I found my way in Daystar, and they were like, okay, go to Valley Road, and then we'll get you like a car or something. So they're trying to entice me. We'll get you a car so you can be coming back home. I was like, no, keep your car. I'm going to Athi River. So I went as far as possible from them. I did the wildest, craziest things that I could possibly do. But my mom was still very much like, every weekend, I need to see you in my house. Like, come every weekend. My younger brother, he comes home when he wants to come home. But for me, she was like, every weekend, come here. So I would come. I'd come, I'm hungover, all these things. But I'm like, okay, you've seen me, I'm alive, I'm good. I go back. So I think it's only like until I was an adult, and not even my early 20s. I think like from my mid 20s is when this like structure and I think there was a part of me that felt like, okay, Sasa, we've done everything we wanted to do, done all the wild stuff, all the crazy stuff. Now let's like be an adult. Okay, let's get it together, girl. So I guess that's how I'm the way that I am now.
So adulting has gotten you here.
It's basically adulting.
Awesome.
I just couldn't be crazy and spontaneous and all of these things anymore. But there should be room for that.
How has that affected, like, if you look back, how has that affected like your relationships? Because you were this unstructured person, you were crazy, you were wild, you were ready for, I'm assuming it's like you were ready for the next party. And then now you're like, actually, guys, I'm not interested with that stuff.
So like I actually thought about this not so long ago. A lot of my friends that I had in uni, I'm not friends with them anymore because I realized they were just my party friends, and they were friends out of convenience. Like, we live in the same space in school. We have the same classes, we party together. And when I kind of, stopped partying and drinking and doing all of that, we kind of just drifted. Obviously, there's no hate, there's nothing. It's just life. It's just life. We're just not aligned anymore. We're not chasing the same things anymore. I still, have love for them. So I definitely lost a couple of people on the way, but some other friends of mine who I have known even since high school and uni, I still have them. And I guess it's just by the mercy of God that I still have them, because, I keep hearing this thing when you become a Christian, you're going to lose all your friends and your relationships and all of these things. And that's something I really feared for myself, because I'm like, I've known this girl since I was in high school and uni. I don't want to lose all of them. And I did lose some of them, but I was like, God, Aki, surely you're going to take all of them. So he didn't, thank God. But also because I have seen that they are in their own journeys with God as well. And God has entrusted me, and I'm very grateful for even me stewarding some of those journeys that they're on, or helping them. They come to me with questions, and when I tell them, let's go to church, let's go to prayer night, they're open to doing it. So I have noticed my friends that I've been able to keep, that I knew even in those phases, are also people who are going through their own journeys with God, and they're figuring it out as well. Everyone who was kind of like opposed to it or leading me the other way kind of just drifted.
Because I guess we're not aligned. I remember, just like you, when I was when I was making the decision to become a Christian. So I was in the clubs, like
Yeah.
I was the DJ in the clubs, and so for me, leaving the club was not as hard.
Mm-hmm.
So the choice of accepting and deciding to follow Christ, my biggest hurdle was,
Mm-hmm.
and Christ, if I follow you, my boys are going to abandon me, and they are all I have.
Yeah.
Like I have because I've not been at church. Well, I grew up in the church, but then I've stayed for like 7-8 years without going to church. So I've no friends in church. So when I make the decision to follow you, it basically what I'm saying is the things we've been doing, rolling together with my boys, we're not going to do them anymore.
Yeah.
And so I was like, if I follow you, tafadhali, I just want to be with my friends.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mess up, but I'm going to show them a different kind of Christianity from what it is that we had experienced before that had pushed us away from the church. But I thank God that we're still boys to date.
Love that.
We're still, some of them have flown out of the country, but we still talk to date. We might take like 5-6 months without talking, but we will still talk. When we get an opportunity to hang out, we will still hang out.
Yeah.
But the relationship and we've grown up together from when we're like this, from like 5-6 years old. How do you just walk away,
It's not easy.
It's not easy at all. It's not easy at all. So I'm curious, I'm just curious a little bit about your life. And, my assumption is you were raised as a Christian as well.
No.
No? How were you?
No, I mean, my parents tried. My dad was a lot more Christian than my mom was. My mom was kind of just like, okay, yeah, I love God. I know God. We've all I
like that my assumption is completely off because she was talking about being guarded by her mom.
I was sheltered because she had her own fears about raising a girl. And she had her own things. For context, she had me when she was very young. She had me when she was pregnant at 19, gave birth at 20.
Yeah.
And you can imagine as a 20-something, early 20, 21, 22-year-old raising a child, you don't know a lot. So you just project kind of what you think is the standard of raising a child, and especially a daughter.
Yeah.
So she sheltered me a lot because of that, not because of Christianity or anything like that.
Yeah.
My dad was definitely a lot more spiritual than my mom was. So he made sure that we were in church. And my mom just came along and she was just like, yeah, I love God, so I'm going to come.
Yeah.
And at some point, my parents weren't going to church as often. I don't know what happened there. That's their own thing. But my dad's family always took me with them. So my dad's family was very spiritual. They were serving in church. They were actually, one of his cousins was a Sunday school teacher, and she was my Sunday school teacher. So because of that, I was in church, and I was in church on time. I did DVBS. I did I was, when they were Christmas cantanas, I was there on the stage singing with the rest of the kids, the carols and all of that. So I was very present during holidays because they are serving in church. So they would take me. And I'm so grateful to them, honestly, because they gave me that foundation that I needed. That verse that says, teach a child in the ways of the Lord, and they'll never depart from it.
Yeah.
So I had that foundation. And then obviously when you go to high school and there's no one taking you to church or telling you go to CU. I used to go to CU, but I would mostly sleep, to be honest. And I would always sit on the front row, but I would be asleep.
Yeah.
I wouldn't pay attention, or I'd just be there to look at the boys or the men who've come to preach to us.
Which high school were you?
State House.
You're in State O?
I was in State
So you must have come to your school when you were there.
You probably did. I'm 100% sure you
Myself,
did.
yeah.
So me, I was just there for vibes. I'm like, yeah, this is something we all do.
Yeah.
On Sunday, fine. So I had no relationship with God. I didn't even care to have a relationship with God. I was like, okay, he exists, I guess.
Yeah. But your mind is not.
My mind was not there at all. My mind was with boys and, teenage stuff.
Yeah.
Uni was even worse. Uni, I went completely.
Because now you were in the heart of Christian university.
Yeah. Oh, I barely went to chapel.
And that was a requirement.
It was a requirement. And even, so what happened is when I was there, that's when they lifted the rule for you can't graduate if you don't go to chapel. So that rule was lifted. It was there when I joined, and they were really on our case about you have to go to chapel. But when the rule was lifted, I was like, okay, so I don't have to go. Cool.
Yeah.
I never went.
Yeah.
I didn't care much. I wasn't even pursuing a relationship with God. I didn't even care if he existed. I was just going through my own, trying to figure out who I am, being confused, being lost, being all of that. So no, I did not grow up in a Christian background at all. I had the foundation, but yeah.
So what led you, at what point or what led you to being in that space where I think God, for you knew that God existed. You were just not looking for him.
No.
So what led you to being in that place where you're like, I need to consider this man Jesus some more?
Yeah. So like I said, I had the foundation, and my mom keeps telling me that when we used to go to CITAM when it was NPC Karen, and these I don't know if they were hymn books, but they were like hymn books on every aisle, right?
Golden bells.
Something, right? So every time she'd take me to church or I'd go to church, I would always write on each hymn book like it's my own book. This is property of Sharon Mwangi, blah, blah, blah. And then I would say how I'm going to be a pastor, like Suji Pastor who. There was like a white guy who used to preach at CITAM. Dennis White. I'm going to be a pastor like Dennis White, blah, blah, blah. I want to be a pastor, all of these things. So I'd write on each property of, and how I'm going to be a pastor. So she only told me this like very recently. Wow. And I was like, wow. So even as I think I was like 5 or 6 at the time when I was writing those things, or 7.
Yeah.
There was like a version of me that existed in heaven that, had, that a child version of me knew.
Yeah.
But so I kind of lost that when I went to, uni, and I went to high school and all of those things. And I love the story of God living, the shepherd leaving the 99 for one. I actually have it tattooed on me.
I was going to ask, yeah.
I have it tattooed on me because I relate so much with being...
Let me see it. Sasa umefunikwa na mic.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So I relate so deeply to being that one sheep.
Yeah.
I have been that sheep for so many years. And God literally, for real, left the 99 for me. I can tell you that. The crazy things I've done, like the horrible things I've done, because I've done some crazy things. It's just God's mercy that I found not that I found my way. He left them to come and find me.
Yeah.
So long story short, I told you where I used to work. Let's not mention the names. But when I left uni, I got a job. That job, immediately, again, God's favor, immediately, I didn't even graduated when I got that job. They called me while I was still doing my exams for my last semester. And they were like, oh, we have a role we're hiring for. We think you'd be a great fit. And I'm like, what? I've not even graduated. Anyway, so I get that job. I didn't like it. And then there were a lot of other personal things that were happening in my life. So I slipped into depression. So this was my second time being depressed. The first time was, having a depressive episode. The first time was when I was in my 3rd year, going into my 4th year of uni. I sat in the dark for months. I barely went to class. I went to only one class that I enjoyed. The rest I didn't go. Horrible GPA. I just sat there and watched Game of Thrones, 6 seasons. And my friends would come to my...
Which is not at a very...
Yeah.
Lighting, a show that brings a lot of light into your life.
No, it does not.
Yeah.
One episode is like an hour, 2 hours long. So you can imagine 6 seasons. I really sat there.
You were just binging.
I was just binging, and I'm just like, I didn't know I was depressed. Like back then, depression wasn't well understood as it is now. I knew I was sad. I knew I didn't want to be alive. I felt like even if I died today, no one would care. I hated being alive, and I don't say that lightly. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel any of those things. And I actually did have a suicidal attempt. Thank God I was not successful at it. So then I somehow was able to get out of that rut or that depressive episode. And then, I graduated, I got this job. So while I'm at this job, I go through a breakup. horrible job. My boss was so mean to me. And I'm just like, God, why am I alive? Like, please tell me, like, what am I doing here? Every day I would wake up. Now at this point, I've moved back to my parents' house from uni. I'd wake up and I'm like, I can't believe I'm still alive. Like, I can't believe I woke up today. Why do I have to? Sorry, can I please have tissue?
Yeah.
I asked for these things because I knew.
Probably.
I knew.
It's a safe space though.
Thank you. So I would wake up and I'm like, why am I still alive? In fact, I'd see the sun and I'm like, ugh, I have to wake up, I have to leave the house, I have to go to work, I have to go do all of these things. And I remember there was a day I even just couldn't. I sat on my desk and I couldn't even work. I left. And luckily, my good friend who I became friends with when I was working there, she covered for me and she just told them, oh, Sharon is sick, she had to leave. But I wasn't sick. I was just not mentally okay. I couldn't even work. So one night I come back home and I went into my room at my parents' house and I just sat like knelt on the floor and I just started praying. I hadn't prayed in ages, I think since I was that little baby in DVBS. And I'm like, God, if you exist, I need you to help me. I'm tired of feeling the weight of the sadness, the depression, the everything that is happening in my life. I don't know what I'm doing alive. I don't know why I'm here. Help me. I was just like, God, help me. I can't even tell you that I knew that I can't remember exactly what I said, but I remember it was a cry for help. And I knew he's the only one who can help me. So I cried for help, and I can't tell you that I saw a white, bright light, or I saw Jesus, or I saw any of that. I did not see any of that. But when I stood off of the floor, I felt lighter. I just felt lighter. I felt like I've been walking around with this like heavy load on my shoulders and on my chest. In fact, where I used to feel it was my chest. And I woke up and it wasn't there. It was there still, but it was lighter.
Yeah.
And I could breathe. I felt like I can breathe. And I was like, oh my God, like he actually had me. Like God had me.
Yeah.
And he exists. And I can say that's where I gave my life to Christ. There was no altar call for me. There was no going to the front of a church and to be prayed for. There was none of that. I didn't even say the believer's prayer. But I knew that that I gave my life to Christ. I was like, God, I'm tired of living my life like this. I need you. I need your help. I want you in my life. And that's how I found, or rather God came and, found me. And then it's been now, I think 8 years, 7 years. Around that time.
That's incredible, and I'm so grateful and, about what it is that you're talking about, because I know that there are many people who sometimes think that they have to go to church, for them to become a Christian, or to go forward for them to become a Christian.
Yeah.
It's so funny because as well, just like you, when I made the decision to follow Christ, I was alone in the sitting room, in my boys' sitting room.
Yeah.
And I had gone to church that morning. Like I'd left the club at like 5:00. I slept until maybe 10:30.
Yeah.
Then I went for a 12:00 service. The guy spoke very well and he did an altar call. I looked around. I was like, all of you guys are strangers to me.
Yeah. Why am I doing this?
Why am I doing this for?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, this is a decision between Jesus and I. So when I went home, I thought about it some more and I was like, Mose, do you really want to make this decision? And I was like right there in the living room. And that Sunday after maybe like 4:00, I knelt down and I was like, okay, Jesus, I'm going to follow you from today.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what's coming, but I choose to follow you because I think this is the best decision I could make.
Yeah.
So, but I'm curious if you don't mind me asking, like when you were in uni, what would lead you to getting depressed at that time? Because I'm assuming that, let me not make any assumptions.
Yeah.
But what would lead you to getting depressed at that time as a young person? If you don't mind.
Yeah,
sharing.
no, I'm trying to think whether I want to get like fully deep into it. I'll share what I can share.
Yeah.
But like I said, I had a very sheltered upbringing, but that also came with a lot of childhood trauma that I didn't even know that I had.
Yeah.
I had also gone through like a traumatic event when I was around 11, 12, and I had never dealt with it. So it just felt like this thing that I had been carrying for so many years, and I didn't know that it was affecting me.
Yeah.
And it's only until maybe like 4 years ago when I went to therapy and we actually spent a whole year in therapy talking about
Wow.
it. That's when I was just like, okay, wow, that was a lot for an 11-year-old, 12-year-old version of me to go through. Yeah, so I was carrying a lot of that, the trauma from that incident that happened, the trauma of, being raised by a confused 21, 20, 22-year-old who, had left an abusive marriage that, also left her with a lot of trauma that she was projecting on me. And, a lot of mean words had been said. And, I even remembered, I think yesterday or the day before yesterday, one of my teachers when I was because I used to get a lot of like attention from boys, which is not my fault. Anyways, but I probably entertained it maybe a bit more than I should have.
But you didn't know better as well.
I didn't know
'cause you were
any
young.
better, right? I'm like, what, 11, 12? Like, I'm
Yeah.
at preteen. So obviously, like, you have the raging hormones and the whatever, trying to understand, well, why do I suddenly like boys like this? And one of my teachers, who I guess was frustrated with me, I don't know what his reasonings were. There's one time he sat all of us down and he was, lecturing us for what we're doing, blah, 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 which we had done nothing. We just liked boys and girls. And he was like, oh, Sharon, you're never going to amount to anything.
Wow.
That you're just going to be a prostitute. The most that you can do is be a prostitute or work in a club or something like that. And he said such horrible, mean things to me. And at home, I'm not being affirmed either.
Yeah.
I'm kind of being told the same things. Like sometimes when my mom would get angry at me, she'd be like, yeah, you're just going to be a house help. You're just going to be a botch, blah, 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 all of these things. Like, because she's frustrated with me and she didn't know any better, even her. And I give her a lot of grace and I love her so much. And we've really worked on our relationship and I've come to forgive her for those things that she didn't know any better for.
Yeah.
So I'm being, all of these things are being said to me and I'm just absorbing them like a sponge because I'm a child.
Yeah.
Children absorb things that you tell them and they don't know that, no, that's not going to happen. That's not who I am. I'm not going to be a prostitute. You just believe, you just absorb. So all of these things are taking a toll on my self-esteem, my self-worth, my self-concept.
It's like they're just chipping.
They're just
off you,
chipping at me.
pole, yeah.
And I'm a child. So obviously when I evolved into now a teenager and then now my early 20s, all of these things have been happening. So I go through another traumatic event when I'm around 20. That time when I was in uni, I think I was 21. So for context, this other traumatic thing that had happened when I was around 11, 12 was sexual abuse. And I thank God that it didn't get to the point of actual like rape, like penetration, but there was some sexual abuse. So
it's still sexual abuse.
It's still sexual abuse. I thank God that it didn't get to the extent of actual like rape and penetration because I don't even know how I would have recovered from that. And I empathize with a lot of people who've gone through that.
Yeah.
So I go now, from the sexual abuse background. So obviously my relationship with men, horrible.
Yeah.
Because what do I know? What do I know about boys? What do I know anything? And obviously I'm using sex as a thing as well because I think that's how you receive love. You receive love through sex. All of these things, like I don't know anything and there's no one guiding me. There's no one telling me, no, that's not right. That shouldn't have happened to you. This is not how you approach men. This is not how relationships with men should be like. Nothing. I'm just living life. So around 21, 22, I go through another traumatic event and I was drinking a lot because I just wanted to numb the pain. I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to process any of those things that had happened. I just wanted to forget. So I used to be drunk a lot. And you know, you're in uni, people are just like, Sharon is just bashing.
Yeah.
We're just partying. This is what we do when we're in uni, right? No one is just like, I think you're overdoing. I think there's a problem here.
Yeah.
And all my friends are also just like, you know, we're like, yeah.
It's like the more you binge, the more you're enjoying yourself.
Exactly. We're just enjoying life.
Yeah.
So I drank a lot. And then I ended up, so what I would do, I was a serial dater, just because I never wanted to be alone at any one point of time, because I didn't want to deal with myself. I didn't want to face myself ever. So I would just serial date one guy after the other, because I'm just like, no, I can't face myself. I can't even be quiet in the stillness. I had to have something going on. So I meet a guy. We didn't even end up like actually being in an actual relationship, but it was a situationship. And I open up to him and I tell him about, you know, the depression, and I tell him about the thing that had happened, and he opens up to me. He had also had a suicide attempt, and we open up, and I think, we are bonding. So he ends up breaking up with me or leaving me. And as he leaves me, he says to me, you know, Sharon, you shouldn't go around telling people about that thing. Some things you just keep to yourself. And I'm like, I thought we were bonding. I thought like you were safe, and I thought that I had opened up to you. And again, the words, they just, you know, chip at me, and, you know, I start to feel horrible about myself again. And I go back into this, like, you know, depressive episode again. So at the time that I'm now attempting the suicide attempt, I, you know, have had years of trauma. I have carried this person that I thought, you know, was a safe space. One of the only people I'd even told about what had happened and I'd opened up to them is now telling me, don't go around telling people that. That's so, keep some things to yourself. I was just like, why am I here?
Yeah.
You know, my friends knew, and they tried to support me. My family had no idea. They were just, you know, living their lives. And I'm like, why am I alive anyways? If I was to die today, the world will continue. Like, maybe one or two of my friends will feel really horrible and they cry. Maybe my mom and my dad would feel, you know, very sad, and life will move on. So I was just like, I'm just tired. I'm tired of being alive. I don't want to do this anymore. And so I had the suicide attempt, and the next day I woke up and I was like, wow.
It's like God spared you.
I'm like, why am I still here? God, I wanted to die. But so now I can laugh about it. But in the moment, it was not an easy thing to go through. And that's why I'm so loud. People say I don't think I'm loud. I think I could be louder. But that's why, like, God means so much to me. Because no one could have taken me out of that place. No one. I can tell you for sure. Like, yes, go to therapy, do all of those things. I've done them. But there's a level of help that can only come from God. And He is the only one who knows you to that degree that He can be able to even take you out of that place, because He knew me. He knows me. He knows me better than I know myself. So,
Man, I'm really sorry about some of that challenge, and especially like you've said about how when you opened up to someone that you thought is a safe space, and then the person ends up telling you off. And I know that there are many people who do the same thing, you know, and we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and open up, which is the right thing to do when you're with your friends. And let them know what you're going through, so you don't have to carry this heavy load by yourself. But when it gets thrown back at your face and you're told, you know, what the heck is wrong with you? You keep it to yourself. You're like, that's such a wrong response. And I think it's important for us to be sensitive and listen to one another, because sometimes people are crying out and they're reaching out for help, and we tend to dismiss them. And then what would have happened, Sharon, if you didn't wake up the next day? Then guys would have been like, oh man, tulikuwa tunajua mazi, tukiangalia mazi vile life yake alikuwa naenda. You know, we saw it coming, because that's what people start saying.
Exactly. Like, after, and honestly, I really, really, like my heart bleeds for people who actually attempted suicide and they were successful at it, because I relate. I know how it feels to be in that place of not wanting to be alive anymore.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, the response is always like, yeah, we could tell he wasn't okay, we could tell he was sad, we could tell things were not going great for him. And yeah,
You let it happen.
yeah, like there's a lot more we could definitely do.
Yeah.
And I know it's also very confusing to be on the other side and to wonder, how can I really help this person, how can I be there for this person? For me, for my friends who did know and they did show up for me, it was as simple as them coming to my house and opening my curtains, making sure I've eaten, because they're like, Sharon, when was the last time you ate? When was the last time you showered? Can you get out of bed? Putting me in the shower and making sure I've showered, making sure I've eaten, coming to just check in on me and just see, how are you doing today? How are you feeling today? If you don't want to talk about it, it's okay, but don't let them feel like they're alone, like no one cares, no one loves me. Just like engulf them with love. Don't do the, oh, if you need me, I'm here. No. People who need help usually don't know how to ask for help.
Yeah.
So you have to exert yourself and just be like, I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah. You have to, it's like you have to force yourself into that space.
You have to force yourself there. I'm here. Let's eat. Let's do this. Let's whatever. Because they probably don't even know how they need to be helped.
Yeah.
They don't. Like, take them to therapy if you can. Like, get them out of the house. Let them see the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot more we can definitely do.
How did you ever talk to your mom about this attempted suicides of yours or not?
Yeah, my mom has she doesn't like me talking about her on podcasts. So but she knows that I love her, and she knows that that I understand her and that I've forgiven her for a lot of the things.
Yeah.
But actually, because I was a vlogger at some point. So I did a YouTube video when I had, given my life to Christ, and I was feeling lighter and all of these things. And I felt led to, do a video and just talk about like the depression and all of that. This is like in 2017. So depression, again, wasn't as well understood as it was back as it is now. So I do this video, I talk about my experience, I talk about, the crying, when I did the crying on the floor and all of these things happen. And my mom, because I was still living with my parents, my mom comes into my room and she's just like, why are you lying to people that you are depressed? And I'm like, Mom, I didn't lie. I was actually depressed. My dad had a different reaction. My dad also comes to my room and is like, yeah, so we watched your video and I just want to know, like, is there any way we can support you? I'm sorry this happened to you. And okay, I'm not sure he said I'm sorry. African parents, before they say I'm sorry,
their way of saying I'm sorry
is like,
they won't say it.
Chika chakula, umekula leo, or something.
Yeah.
So he didn't say I'm sorry, but he was just like, how can we support you better moving forward? We didn't know that this was happening.
Yeah.
I think it's only now my mom looks back and now she understands that I was actually depressed and I wasn't lying about it. I think also because she's seen all of my mess and me being a child and all of these things, she just thought that like, oh, this is just like a thing that I'm in my childish ways that I'm saying. And I was just like, Mom, I'm actually not lying. And this is not me being a child.
Yeah.
I am serious. I was depressed. And now she understands. So, yeah.
And it's like there's a lot going through my mind, even just as I listen.
But it's also a very African parent reaction.
Yeah.
I think now is when maybe even African parents are starting to understand the concept of depression and anxiety and mental health.
Yeah.
Before it was just like, can you stop that nonsense that you're doing? Or they just used to trivialize it. It was just like a whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. Now is when they're starting to see, okay, this is a thing.
And I think we are more like if I was to look at myself and also some of my friends and how we do our parenting, it's very different from how our parents were doing.
We were parented, yeah.
Yes. Like,
sure.
I think we have been more intentional to do things differently in terms of how we raise our kids.
Yeah.
And because I think there are times when our parents would beat us for doing things.
Yeah.
And rather than trying to understand, why are you doing this thing that you're doing? Why are you struggling in school?
Yeah.
why are you struggling with this teacher? Why don't you guys get along?
Yeah.
So like I find myself being in that space more. Like I want to be intentional with my kids to find out some of these things. I do find sometimes it's easy to go to the default settings. Like this is how we were raised up. Just grow up,
Yeah.
But it's not like that. No, I think it's important for us to get to the space where we understand our kids. Our job is to raise them up and raise them up well. And part of that raising them up well is being intentional to be in their space to try and understand them.
Yeah.
Why are they struggling like they're struggling? Sometimes they're not just acting up for the sake of acting up.
Yeah.
They are, maybe there is a real issue that they're dealing with. It could be at school with their friends.
Yeah.
Or challenge with a teacher or teachers or, just some things that are a little bit off. How do we help them manage and cope with that situation rather than just dismissing them?
I think even when kids, like as parents, I'm not a parent yet, but when kids come and actually tell you I'm struggling here or I need help here, you need to take that seriously.
Yeah.
Like don't dismiss it. Don't be like, oh, they're just a child, so they don't even know. Actually take it seriously. And it's even goes to show for something that they feel safe enough to come and tell you, I'm struggling here or I need help here. A lot of us in this other generation where we were raised by, those parents, we were just very much like, let me just go figure it out by myself because my parents are not going to help me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now that you have, I don't even know if I should transition to this, but I think it's good, because you're a new person today. Just watching you and listening to you, when you talk about how Jesus found you, it's like there's a deep, emotional.
Oh, yeah. Nothing makes me cry like Jesus.
Because you know where he found you.
He does. I know. Yeah.
And when you consider now your life before and your life now with Christ, like how is it?
Bro, like I don't know what I would have done without God. I don't know even who I would have been without God. I recently downloaded Snapchat.
Yeah.
And Snapchat does this amazing thing where it shows you 8 years ago you are doing this. So now it's been showing me memories of like me when I was in uni, like 8 years ago, 9 years ago, you were here, you were doing this, you were talking like this. Like it's showing me like videos and of myself. Like even yesterday I watched a video of me saying, oh, I'm so happy it's Friday, I get to leave this horrible place. Those are not the words I used.
Yes.
I've just censored the words that I used. So I'm watching myself and I'm looking at like that version of me that I was. And if the Lord had not found me, I don't know where I would have ended up. I don't know what path I would have taken in life. I was not a great person. I even, I was rereading some of my old messages on Snapchat again with my friends. And the things I was saying to them, I was like, why would I say that to someone? And one of my friends was just like, lol, Share, you're so mean. And I was just like, no, I'm just telling you the truth. But I was being mean to her. And I was mean even to my friends. So you can imagine with strangers how I was to them. And I think I was just an angry child, an angry person, a hurt person. I was so deeply hurt. I was, betrayed. I wasn't protected. I wasn't, there was a lot of trauma I was carrying around. And my trauma were my headlights. Like when you're driving a car and your headlights are guiding you when it's at night.
That's so good.
My trauma were my headlights. So that was what was guiding me in life. That's what was showing me, this is where you go, this is where we don't go, this is how you date, this is how you don't date, these are your friends, these are not your friends. Those were my trauma was my headlights. So it's only now until I found Christ that now Christ is my headlights. Like he's the one guiding me, telling me, go here, up there's a hole, there's a bump, there's a this, all of these things. So I'm just so grateful. Like I'm grateful for the gift of salvation. I feel like it's a gift.
It is.
I actually feel like it's a gift. Like, wow, I get to experience being saved and get to experience the love of God. And that is my deepest desire for especially people who are dealing with a lot of pain and a lot of hurt, for them to experience the love of God, because there's nothing like it. Like there's, again, only God will make me cry like this. But there's nothing like it, to be honest. There's nothing, not even the love of my parents. And I know my parents love me deeply. I know my friends love me deeply. But when I think about the love of God, there's nothing like it.
I hear you.
Yeah.
And there's something that you said, when that your trauma was your headlight, and I think what also people forget is that hurting people hurt people.
Yeah.
Because you're carrying this thing and you need to let it out.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you can go ahead.
No.
Yeah. And so if it's not dealt with, you continue having this, it could be verbal attack on people. Sometimes it gets physical.
Yep. Oh, I was a fighter. My friends and I laugh about it now.
Wow.
But I've physically fought people, and I'm small. But I've physically fought people in the club. I've physically fought girls at events. I can't explain to you how
mad
angry
with the world. Yeah.
I was.
Yeah.
I've physically fought people. I've verbally fought people. It was a lot.
That's a dark place to be at.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like you say, so as you're talking as well, there's a song I'm thinking about, and Reckless Love. It was done by a guy called Corey Asbury, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
And so when he talks about there's no mountain you won't climb up, no shadow you won't light up, coming after me. Like this love of God is like the only thing that can rescue us from the pit of darkness. And like you've said, people should go for therapy.
Yeah.
And I've said I need to go for therapy as well.
You haven't?
I have not. Oh. And I do need to go for it.
I'll give you my therapist contact.
Oh, please do.
I will.
Please do. Because there's a place of healing that comes from talking.
For sure. Yeah.
And but even as you go through it, if God is in that space, if Jesus is in that space, there's something holistic that happens. Because now he's going to work on you in totality. Yeah. Not just one part.
Exactly.
Because it's a brand new life that he's giving you. And I think it's that's what you're experiencing today.
Yeah, it is. Because it wasn't just healing in one area. He healed everything. It's in totality, as you're saying.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I see a lot of backlash on the internet, or people making fun of Christians, or about how we change, or now we become boring, or become all of these things.
Yeah.
And I'm just when God comes into your life, it's not just one area, it's a whole
everywhere
360. He reveals to you the parts of you that are messy, the parts of you that are chaotic, and you think they're fine. You think this is just who I am.
Yeah.
This is venye nakuanga.
Yeah, this is who I am.
This is who I am. And then God tells you, actually, no, that's not who I created you to be.
Wow.
This is who you think that you are. I keep saying this. I learned this thing about there's a version of you that heaven knows, and then there's the version of you that you're living on earth as. And so there's a version of Sharon that God knows, and I don't even think I'm fully even that version that God knows me to be.
Yeah.
So I'm here on earth thinking that, this is just who I am. This is how I live my life. And God is just no. The verse that says he knew you before he formed you in your mother's womb.
Yeah.
He predestined you to be a certain way. And then you come on earth and you take up trauma, you take up lies, you take up all of these things, and you become a version, and God is just no. I never called you to be that. I never said that's who you are.
Yeah.
So when you let God in your life and you actually let him work on you, when the Bible says he's the potter and we're the clay, and you let him actually mold you, he molds you into the version that heaven knows.
Yeah.
And that is the best version you can ever be, because, when we pray in the Lord's Prayer, let it, as your will is done in heaven, let it be done on earth. You being that version of heaven is the best, because you're going to die empty, meaning that you'll have died having done everything, or been everything that God called you to be or made you to be on earth. So you know that if you're that version of yourself, when you go to heaven and, God tells you, I gave you all of these things, what did you do?
Yeah.
You know that you did them.
Yes.
You know you're gonna get a good and faithful servant. I'm proud of you,
Yeah.
right? Because you are the version of heaven that heaven knows. You are the version of you that heaven knew.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and let me tell you, that being molded, that being tried, I want to be tried by fire, purified.
Yeah.
That song we sing for Maverick City. That trying, that molding is the hardest thing, because you're letting go of, the impurities, but impurities that you have taken up as your personality. Yeah, me, I'm just an introvert. Me, I'm just whatever. Did God say you're an introvert? Maybe he actually created you to be the most bubbly, outgoing person.
Yeah.
But because of your trauma, you've become small. You've made yourself small. You've made yourself quiet. You've shrunk yourself. So yeah, me, even till today, he's still always revealing things to me. When I think I've made progress, he's just like, by the way, Sharon, you're still angry. Recently, he was just revealing to me how I'm still angry and how I can definitely be kinder to people, especially in my anger. And I'm like, okay.
You can't argue.
Sawa. Sawa. Okay.
Have you, as you have talked about your journey for, through salvation, one of the things you said is, it's a gift. And actually, it truly is.
Yeah.
And none of us deserve a gift. If someone is giving you a gift, they're doing it out of their own volition.
Yeah.
So they're like, Sharon, I want to gift you with this. Now it's up to you to choose to accept the gift or not.
Yeah.
And that's what salvation is for every one of us. And that's why you can't boast. You can't boast about a gift.
You can't,
mtu tu amekupatia kwa hiari yake, out of their own free will.
Weren't expecting it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they've chosen to gift it to you. And then you talked about Psalm 139, when you're saying that, God knit you together, in your mother's womb. He's the one who, in fact, he's the one who knew when you were going to be born, And then it says, he continues to say, how wonderful are your thoughts towards me.
Exactly.
If I can't even count them, because they outnumber the grains of sand.
Yeah.
If we just try and hold sand in your hand like this and try and count, it's one of those things we told you can't count.
You can't, yeah.
So that's how God's wonderful thoughts towards you are like.
Yeah.
So I love when you say that, there's a version of ourselves in heaven that God has. And then there's the one that we're living today, which are in such, opposite ends. Because we pick up all these things that come and try to define us. And it's just the enemy coming to corrupt who we are.
Yeah.
And sometimes it corrupts us by trying to do good things for us. But those good things are messing up who God truly wants us to be.
Yeah.
Because the enemy will do anything and everything to get you away from God's will. And if we came to that place where we understood and we're like, God, there's that person that you created for me to be. But in order for me to be that person, it's like I have to lay down my life.
Exactly.
I can't continue controlling my life. Otherwise, we'll be two gods in our life. And God cannot dwell there. He's either God 100% or he's not.
Yeah.
So, moja wenu lazima achague nani na control life. And so, and the other thing, that I feel as you're talking, you're like, for you to truly change, it's like you have to constantly be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Yeah.
And it's like a daily thing.
It is, yeah.
It doesn't happen.
No. Yeah. No, it doesn't. For me, it's taken me 7-8 years for me to be who I am today. I accepted Christ 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And even in those 8-7 years, was it 2016? Now we're in 2025. How many years are those?
That's like 9 years, yeah.
Oh, 9.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's brilliant.
I'm at 2017. No, it was 2017. So 8 years. So 8 years of me still, when I accepted Christ, I didn't just like transform and now I'm holier than thou and now I don't do this and I don't do that. No.
You're not this perfect person now.
I was not. I was a Christian and I still struggled with sin. I was a Christian, still angry, still prideful, still hateful, still all of those things.
Yeah.
It's a daily renewal, like you're saying. The renewing of the mind is daily. It's okay, we're working on this daily. And, I don't even ever want anyone to rush the process. Like, let God work on those things with you. And I think we don't even talk enough about, because once you become a Christian, you think that, okay, now my life is going to transform and I'm going to change. It's not instant. It takes time. So people are not even giving themselves grace. So they even run away from God, because they are like, okay, but I'm a Christian. Why am I still struggling with sin? Why am I still struggling with sexual sin? Why am I still struggling with immorality? And it's just like, that's the whole point of Christianity, is that you struggle with it with God.
Yes.
You're not just now struggling alone.
Oh, wow. So
like,
good.
Yeah, we're now struggling together. Me and God, we're dealing with this thing. And it's going to take time. Like, so people need to give themselves grace. And people also need to give Christians room to not be perfect, because we are never, ever going to achieve perfection. Only Christ was perfect. And we are going to mess up. And the only difference with messing up is that when you mess up, you go back to God.
Yeah.
You say, God, I repent. I've done this thing. I know I've been doing it.
Yeah.
I know I need to stop. Help me. Help me. That's the difference. And I love using this story a lot. That's the difference between Peter and Judas. They both messed up.
Yeah.
Judas betrayed Christ. Peter denied Christ. Right? Judas sat in his sin, his shame, and he allowed the enemy to come into his mind, and he committed suicide.
Yeah.
Peter also felt the shame and the sin and the guilt, but he ran back to Christ.
Yeah.
Actually, that verse where Christ tells Peter, you're going to betray me 3 times, blah, blah. After that, it says, but once you have overcome, come back and strengthen your brothers.
Yes.
So there's the coming back that a lot of us don't do. We sin, we do all of those things, and we don't come back. We say, no, me, I'm too sinful.
Yeah.
The shame is too much. The guilt is too much. And the enemy uses that and he keeps us away from God. So my thing is just like, even as you're being transformed, as you're being renewed, come back.
Yeah.
Come back and say, God, okay, I messed up. I betrayed you. I denied you. I did this. I did that. Help me. Help me, God. I repent. Help me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we are a work in progress.
We are.
And, Philippians 1:6 says that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion.
Yeah.
The thing about salvation is we are asked to work out our salvation with fear and trembling. But we forget that it's God who works in us. That is not otherwise you would become boastful and be like, God, since I became a Christian, I've done these things. This is how much I've changed my life. But it's God who changes us, and he gives us the Holy Spirit, to work in us and to transform us. Yeah. And he's never in a rush. He transforms us every single day. So you look back like now, Sharon, you'd have looked back in 2018 and be like, man, I used to do these crazy things in 2018, but I'm not doing them now. Then in 2019, you're like, man, it's been 2 years. The things I used to struggle with in 2018 that I'm not struggling with today, and now 9 years later, you look back and you're like, man, this could only have taken the hand of God to change me, to make me the person that I am today. And we fail to appreciate how much God is ready and willing to assist us. I remember when I was as a newbie in Christianity, so girls surrounded our lives a lot, as boys growing up. Yeah. And so I remember as a new believer now, nimefika place na mabeshte wangu mazi. So my friends, bado wako gizani, but we're still hanging out. And of course, they could see the change that has happened in my life. Like, they were like, now they'd call me Mose, they'd be like, hey, Mose, you may change. The same guy mazi kutoka last year. And so, kwa hizo harakati zetu, of course, for them, they're still rolling with their mamas and things like that. Ilifika place pia mimi niko na kiburi naambia, mimi naweza kuwa na dame, nothing will happen. Nishafika. Nothing will happen. And so, I was humbled a good one. I was humbled a good one because kwa hiyo harakati, I remember, being with this lady and we didn't do much. But whatever we did would have led to, to us guys committing sexual sin, And so in my room, being with this, being with this lady and, us guys starting a process, and let me just say, it's just by God's grace ilisimamiwa mahali. And I was so broken. I mean, I remember escorting her to the bus stop and nikirudi home and just going on my knees and breaking down and be like, God, I thought I could do this on my own. I was flossing before my boys and saying, man, wase, because nilikuwa nawaambia life, mazee, wase, mimi naweza kuwa na dem na hakuna kitu happen. Hizo tabia nishawacha.
Yeah.
But then we forget that we're still in this flesh.
Yep.
The
flesh is loud.
Oh, man. And the flesh is strong. And actually the Bible talks about how there's a battle that goes on between the flesh and the spirit. And it's the one that you feed who wins this battle. So if you live a life according to the spirit, then you'll not gratify the desires of the sinful nature of the flesh. And so for me, I was so humbled and I had to go back on my knees and be like, yeah, God, I thought that I could overcome this thing by my own will. But unless you help me, siwezi.
Yeah.
I can't. And I'm glad I was humble like that and get to that point, because it took the hand of God to watch over me, even to the time I got married to my wife. Kwa sababu kama hangekuwa, ningekuwa nimechoma picha mbaya.
Yeah.
Mbaya.
Yeah.
So I like how you're asking us to, one, extend grace towards Christians, but then also for us as Christians, we need to remember that we are still in this. We're still in this flesh, and we need to allow God to work in our lives.
Yeah. And I love what you've said about God is always willing to help. It's just pride that keeps us away from asking for help from God, because you feel like, I got it. Like, jana hata nilikuwa prayer night, so I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. No.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, like, one of the most powerful prayers is, God help me.
Yeah.
Just that, God help me. Because who else are we going to ask?
Man.
Just God help me.
Hey, Sharon, you're bringing many scriptures to my head. It's such a good conversation. And for me, I love these kind of conversations because they're guys who have probably made many mistakes, just like you and I.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing about the Bible is it's full of imperfect people.
So many.
Guys think that the Bible is full of people who are perfect. Guys forget that the disciples were messed up.
Yep.
Yani mpaka walikuwa na vurugana katikati yao. In fact, walikuwa naongea kichini chini. Yeah. About each other, like John, when John is talking about Judas, alikuwa nasema, yeah, mazee, mse alikuwa na pinch chapa. But I remember like a wonderful story from David, and after David was caught in sin with Bathsheba, and they conceived and they got a baby. So first he committed adultery, he killed Bathsheba's wife, they got a baby, the baby died. And when he was confronted about his sin, he didn't run away. He ran to God and he was like, he says, create in me a clean heart and renew a right spirit within me. Do not cast me away from your presence. Like, there's no worse place to be than being away from God's presence. In fact, for me, when I think about hell, I'm like, you're away from God's presence.
That's what hell is. It's just, God is not there.
God is not there, So cast me not away from your presence, or take your spirit from me. And then he says, restore to me the joy of your salvation, and I will teach sinners your way. And then he continues to say this, which I think is quite powerful. He says that the sacrifices of God are a contrite heart. A broken and a contrite spirit God will not despise.
I love that. Yeah.
Ule mseyani umeneish. I mean, David alikuwa ametupa mbao. He had messed up so much.
Yeah.
For him to get to the place where he's like, yeah, God, a broken and a contrite spirit, you'll not despise. That's the kind of sacrifice that God loves.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that verse so much. I only discovered it recently as well. And that posture, again, I think it's just maybe why I feel like maybe why God doesn't reject it is because pride is not in the picture. It's not.
It's out.
When you have that broken, contrite spirit and you're going to God with that broken, contrite spirit, pride has no room there. It's just humility. It's humbling yourself before God to be like, God, I'm broken.
Yeah.
I've messed up.
Yeah.
I need your help.
Yeah.
Yeah, and God can never despise that. Ever.
No. In fact, that it almost, it's like that's why Christ came. He came to seek and to save the lost.
Yeah.
And sisi tupambao mara mingi. And I think even for us as Christians, we need to also give grace to our lives, because sometimes we'll make a mistake once and think that God is done with us. We'll make a mistake twice and think that God is done with us.
Yeah.
We'll make a mistake 1,000 times and think that God is done with us. But one time Peter asked Jesus Christ, how many times should I forgive someone who's messed me up? 7 times. And for him 7 times ni more. Hey, Sharon, nimenikosea mazi, nimekuforgive mara 3 sasa, nakuja 4 tunafanya the same thing. Lakini nimekusamehe sasa mara 7. For him that was a big deal. And then Jesus Christ says, 77 times.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of times to forgive someone. So how much, this is how Jesus is asking us to forgive one another. And those are many times. How much more God? That when you go back to him and ask him for forgiveness, do you think he'll tell you, mazi, nimekusamehe mara more?
Too many times.
Yeah,
Zimeisha sasa.
Zimeisha.
Can't forgive you anymore.
Yeah. I think we need to allow and accept God's forgiveness and know that a righteous man may fall 7 times, but God lifts him up every time.
Yeah.
Not you yourself.
I completely agree. Yeah.
And I feel I've talked a lot.
It's your podcast, so
No,
you
but
should
still,
talk a lot.
it's,
So it's
you're
fine.
here with me. And I told you can ask me anything, because you also host an amazing podcast.
Yeah. I don't even know if I have any questions top of mind. I just feel so emotional. God, I'm just like, God, why must you bring me on people's podcasts to cry? Surely, like, enough.
It's because he who's forgiven much loves much.
Yeah. Yeah.
For wendo unajua mahali God amekutoa.
Yeah, only me and him know. And I just remembered, even as you were speaking, I have another tattoo on my back that says happiness. Because I so deeply craved happiness to the point that I tattooed it on me.
Yeah.
And for so many years, I didn't know what happiness felt like.
Yeah.
I used to see people being happy and being full of joy. And I'm like, how?
Yeah.
How do you just wake up and you're just happy? How do you just and I'd have glimpses of it. Like when I'm with my friends, we're hanging out, we're laughing, whatever, I'd have glimpses of it. But like I said, every time I was alone, just me and my thoughts, everything would come back, and I would feel that weight over and over again. And I was just like, God, I so deeply crave happiness. And I never knew that I would experience happiness to the extent that I experience it now. I'm one of those people that now even me, I just wake up and I'm just happy.
Yeah.
And I think back to now that version of me, that younger version of me that so deeply craved it. And I wish I could go back and tell her, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Wow. That verse that says, in the presence of joy, in the presence of God, there's fullness of joy.
Yeah.
I experienced that fullness of joy. And I think when people read it, I don't know what they think when they think fullness of joy, but it's just that daily joy.
Yes.
Just that daily, you wake up and you're like happy. And, for a lot of people, especially people who are depressed, that's not an easy thing.
Nah.
It's not an easy thing for you to, I think if you've never struggled with mental health or depression, you just think that, you just wake up and you're just okay. No, a lot of depressed people, you wake up and you're not okay.
Yeah.
So so like you're saying, only me and God tunajua mali amenitoa, to the point of me tattooing happiness on my back, because I never thought I would experience happiness. And I so deeply craved it, to now it's such a normal thing in my life. I don't even think that, I'm happy today. No, it's just, this is just me. I'm just living my life.
Yeah.
So for real, God, like,
and it's you can see it is coming out of even as you talk. Like it's that joy. It's so evident. It's so evident, and it's because you have a newness of life, and you're like, man, the old is gone, the new has come.
Yeah.
This is brand new me.
Yeah.
This is what God has done with my life. And I'm sure the guys who look at you, like from guys who knew like in 2016, and they're like, man, this is not the same Mama we knew at that time, Bana. This was the same Mama who used to fight with us in the clubs and
the people who've seen my ratchetry, I'm sure they're like, hey, when is Sharon mwenye tulikuwa anapigana na watu deja vu? Or
Karibu akuweke maze picha kwa mlango. This girl is not
she's not allowed here
in the club.
But yeah, for sure there's been definitely a transformation. It's been slow for sure, but it's been there.
It's not a sprint though.
It's not a sprint, and I'm very very grateful that I get to experience it.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
I've got to ask you, I know this is random, but you know, you talked about how you were a serial dater.
Yeah.
You know, has that changed?
Yeah, it has.
That's what's up.
We thank God. So you see, because of like the trauma and the abuse that I went through and all of those things, and not having even any guidance about boys and what I should do in that area, I was just following the standards of the world, right? Like I was just like, oh, so when you do this, or I'm following what my friends are doing, because my friends are now like, so now you
endelea tu tunasema I'm trying to get some more water.
So now you just date boys, and then when you date, you do this, you do it like this, you do it like that. We're just the blind leading the blind, because we're all just two young girls. Who knows? We don't know what we're doing, right? So now when I became a Christian and I gave my life to Christ, I can't say that I instantly stopped serial dating. If anything, I now started idolizing marriage, because I'm just like, okay, so now I'm not going to serial date anymore. I'm just now gonna get married. So every man that I would meet, I'd be like, oh, is that my husband? Is that my husband? And I've been those babes. It's so cringe. Please don't do this if you're a girl and you're watching this. I'd be like, yeah, God told me you're my husband. I cringed so bad when I remember that I said that to a man that was definitely not my husband, but I was desperate for love. And I think that was even why I was serial dating in the first place. It wasn't just like, yes, it was so that I can avoid myself, but I was also seeking and yearning for love and acceptance and all of the things that I lacked growing up, or some form of lack growing up. So I now started idolizing marriage. So I wasn't even serial dating. I just had one guy that I was locked in with, and I'm like, yeah, this is my husband. And he was chaotic. He cheated a lot. He lied a lot. He did a lot of horrible things. But I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to forgive him because he's my husband.
Yeah.
You know, there's a point of being spiritual, and then there's a point of applying logic and not being stupid.
Yeah.
Which is what I was, right?
You feel like you're drifting.
Yeah. And now I'm using my spirituality as an excuse to be stupid. And God does not call any of us to be
And many
stupid.
people do that.
Exactly. Especially women. Girls, I love you, but especially women. So I'm there and I'm just like, yeah, I'm just going to forgive him. I'm just going to forgive him. I'm just going to forgive him. And I did. I forgave him and I forgave him. He cheated so many times. I can't even count how many girls. He flirted with girls even in front of me. Like, there were so many things that happened, right? And I would forgive. And then, obviously, everyone is telling me, Sharon, I don't think this is your husband. And I don't think he's treating you well. My mom hated him, like very much disliked him. She was just like, why are you still with this man? Leave him. Anyways, 5 years went by. Eventually, I did leave him. We thank God. And then I left that situation going into another one where I'm just like, yeah, my husband, my husband. Until now, God revealed to me and he was just like, Sharon, you know, you've idolized. Actually, it wasn't even God that told me. Maybe it was God through someone.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know Thimba. Do you know Thimba?
Yeah, Eric.
Yeah, Thimba is a friend of mine. And love Thimba. He once like was, I don't know what I was posting on my stories. So he responded to me and he was just like, Sharon, do you feel like you idolize marriage?
That's such a Thimba thing, by the way.
Very Thimba thing to do. And I'm like, no. And then he's just like, well, I feel like you do. Let's discuss. And then we ended up, I don't know if we even discussed in length, but I had like a moment where I was just like, okay, do I idolize marriage? And then I took it to God and I talked to God about it. And I was just like, yeah, I've definitely been idolizing marriage for years. Years went by and I had no clue that I was idolizing marriage. And then it's only very recent like last year, that now God has been working on me. And yes, I desire marriage, but I'm just like, okay, like I'm like, okay, you God, when you want.
Yeah, when
it's your time, it's your time.
Yeah.
When whoever it's with, it will be with them.
Yeah.
I'm not obsessing about it anymore. I'm not even like, there was even a point where I was just like, God, hata sahi staki, like just
Humble that
yeah,
much.
so staki. Wacha tu akam like baadaye, like later. Let's give me some time to be alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, so no, I'm not serial dating anymore. I'm now trying to not idolize marriage anymore.
That's what's up. But
yeah.
It's so interesting that you say that you stopped doing this thing and then you feel that void with something else. So but that's the nature of humanity. That's the nature of man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So allow me to ask you as well about, because I want our viewers as well to be able to engage with you on your platforms as well. Tell me a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah.
Best Kept Secret.
My podcast is called the Best Kept Secrets Podcast.
Yeah.
We've had it for, I think, 2 years and some change.
Yeah.
Again, this is not a podcast I wanted to do. God told me to do it. And you know when people say God told me, you think that you hear a voice, it comes at you in the middle of the night and tells you, Sharon, go and start a podcast. No, that's not what happened to me. I just suddenly had a desire that I never had before to have a podcast. I even remember someone telling me, oh, Sharon, do you think you're ever gonna have a podcast? But then I was like, no, that's not my thing. Also, everyone is doing it, so I don't want to do it. And shortly after, I start having this desire within me to start a podcast. And I'm like, where is this thing coming from? I don't want it. And then I was praying about it, and I asked someone to help me pray about it. And she was just like, yeah. She gave me a prophetic word, and she told me, like, this is what God desires the podcast to be like. This is what it's going to speak about. This is what, it's going to help and impact people in this and this and this way. And I was just like, okay. Yeah. So now I have to do it. Like now, God has even sent a prophet to come and tell me, now I have to do it. So I've been doing it. And again, I've just been doing it by the leading of the Lord.
Yeah.
It's not me. Most of the time, I don't even know what I'm saying on there. But I'm just like, okay, God, you have entrusted me with this platform. I pray to be a good steward over it. I pray that you'll speak through me. I pray. And I think for me, there was even a shift that I had a year into the podcast. So I was just like, okay, God, this is not about views, and it's not about winning awards, and it's not about being top 10 podcasts in Kenya. It's not about any of that. This is about impact. It's about that one person that comes, clicks on that video or clicks on that audio, listens to it and says, wow, I need to know God more. Or wow, I need to go back to church. Or wow, I need to forgive this person. It's just about that one person. It's about impact now more than ever. So yeah, that's the podcast.
That's fantastic, Vanna. So hopefully, man, when I make it, she'll call me for her podcast.
No, please, we are having you. Even as you were speaking, I'm like, we are so having him on the podcast. Yeah, we are so having him.
Mina default, nitakufuata tu. I'm going to stalk you, Vanna.
Please, come.
But and you also do something else. You have a business as well.
I do have a business.
Yeah.
I'm also an entrepreneur.
Yes.
The hardest job ever in life.
Hey, man, like, it's for character development, Vanna.
It's so hard. So hard. And I've had so many moments where I'm just like, I'm just going to close this business. What am I even doing with this thing? Like even last year, December, and I haven't spoken about this a lot, but I was telling my friends and I was just like, guys, by the way, I'm done with Epiphany. And they were like begging me. They're like, Sharon, please, no, just one more collection. Just try one more time.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, guys, no, by the way, I'm so done. So I had told myself, I won't announce publicly that this is our last collection. Myself, I know this is my last collection. So I'm going to release it. However it performs, it will perform. And me, I'll move on. So all my friends were buying because they're like, this is the last one she's making. And then some random person that I do not know came to my DM and gave me a prophetic word. Like God sends, he always sends me something when he knows I need it, when I need it. She came and she told me, and I've never even spoken to her, and she had never DM'd me before. She was just like, hi, I was praying and God placed it in my heart to tell you that the next collection you're going to release for Epiphany is going to be your most successful collection. You're going to make the most money you've ever made in this business, and God is with you.
Wow.
I was like,
wow. At my
point of God, I'm closing this thing. He sent me that word. random person on my Instagram DM. And that did happen.
Yeah.
It did happen. The collection performed really well, and we did make a lot of money. And it gave me just that motivation for, okay, God, you're not done with it yet. Because there was also another word that had been given years ago about some things with Epiphany that haven't come to pass yet. So even as I was struggling and praying to God about it, I was like, God, but I want to close this thing. It's not working out anymore. But that word I was given hasn't come to pass yet. So should I still keep going? And, now in hindsight, when the Bible says that no word he speaks, that is not a man that he should lie. No word he speaks ever comes back to him void, right? So I'm like, okay, you're not done with it yet, so I can't be done with it either. So yeah, that's Epiphany. We're a made in Kenya brand. We're fully made in Kenya. All our fabrics, everything is sourced, tailored in Kenya as well. We are for women. We hope to inspire as much femininity out of women as possible. So we make items that make women feel as feminine, as woman as possible. So yeah, that's Epiphany.
I'll have to get something for my wife.
Please do.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
I have to show commitment.
Yes.
To your amazing business, and
Thank you.
because we need to support one another. So if people want to get merchandise, the merchandise that you're selling on Epiphany, where do they get it?
So our Instagram is Epiphancy Clothing Africa, and the podcast is Best Kept Secrets Pod on Instagram, and then on Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere else.
That's what's up. So guys, tafadhali, we need to show love to our very own.
Yeah.
What I do love about your story is there's so many God moments.
So many.
Even when you are lost.
Yeah.
Like when you are lost and you're like, I am in the darkest of darkest places. I'm in the dungeons, and you're trying to end your life in that dark place. And then it's like you tried killing yourself, and in the morning, God is like, Sharon Amka.
Rise and shine.
I know we laugh about it now.
Yeah.
But like God has a plan for you.
He clearly does.
Yes, he truly does.
Yeah.
He truly does. And I'm so happy that you have yielded yourself to him. And even now, as you continue doing the work that you're doing, you can clearly see that he's with you, because even when you started the podcast, he's sending you someone, to come and speak over it and to tell you, Sharon, you need to do this thing. When you're doubting and you're wondering, what do I have to tell people? In your business, you're that point of like shutting it down, and you're telling yourself, I'm going to shut this thing down, and then God is like, yo,
I'm not done.
I'm not done.
Yeah.
So God definitely has an agenda for you.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you have yielded yourself to him. And I feel I've never asked this from any guest that I have on my podcast. Actually, I've never, but I feel I should ask you. I guess because of what you have been through.
Yeah.
Like for people who've gone through the dark space that you've gone through, what would you want to share with us?
A lot of things. But if I was to go back, because sometimes I think about that version of me, my younger self, and me and my little bed sitter in Desta Athi River, going through the pits and going through all of that, I think what I would have told her is just to not be afraid to cry out to God for help. Just cry out to him for help. It's as simple as that, because that's what changed my life. Wow. If I hadn't cried out for help, I don't know. I'm sure he would have found other ways to find me. He would have gone through the hills and the valleys to find me. But what shifted my life and made it go this way instead of going that way was just me having that, contrite spirit, and being on my bedroom floor on my knees, crying out to God for help.
Yeah.
So I would say, even in the darkest of your spaces, he's there. He's there. He's there with you. All you need to do is cry out for help. Yeah. And he's there. He's listening. He's willing and ready to help you. Yeah.
That's what's up. So Jesus says, come to me, all you who are weary and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And I think that's clearly what came out of Sharon, when she was carrying this heavy load on her shoulders, and she fell on her knees, just broken and contrite. And she was like, Yani, God, please help me, because no one else can help me. And so there's a hip hop artist called The Truth who did a song called Jive. Jesus is for everybody. So like, he's for you.
Yeah.
And he's ready to walk with you and to work with you and to help offload this heavy baggage that you have on your shoulders, so you can be able to walk free. He says that he who the Son sets free is free indeed. And he says, cast your burdens upon me because I care about you. And let me tell you, man, that love of God is so real, it's so tangible, and it's readily available for you. And he's saying, he's asking you, will you accept my love? Because he'll never force himself on you. And that's not how he does it.
Yeah.
But his love is so present and it's so real, and all he's asking you, will you accept my love? And so I hope that today, even with this podcast, that it's that day that you'd get to like that point where Sharon was, like, God, please help me, because I can't do it on my own. And Sharon and I, we are products of grace, and God continues working on us. We're not perfect people, but we serve a perfect God who continues working in us towards perfection. Cindy, thank you so much for joining us for our podcast today. Sharon, this has been so dope.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
So good. Please come on mine next.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Just let me know the day and time.
Thank you for
Because
having
I've
me.
really enjoyed having you on my podcast. And for guys to know, we've never met before.
No, we've never. Yeah. Yeah.
We're perfect strangers, Bana.
Yeah.
We've had such a good conversation. Thank you.
This was so nice. Thank you so much for having me.
No, my joy.
Yeah.
Like my joy. Like so you cannot, maybe I'll tell you now when I come for your podcast, but there's so many things that you've said that I resonate with about my life.
I want to hear your story. So when you come on mine now, you're the one who's going to tell us, so I can hear everything.
Oh my gosh. I cannot wait. And thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Karibu bana. Anyway, guys, thank you for joining us for the podcast today. I was hanging out with an amazing, beautiful lady called Sharon K Mwangi. I hope that you've enjoyed the conversations I've had with her. And guys, this is one of those uplifting podcasts. I feel like this year, the podcasts that we've had have just been like super dope, right? Yani, these imetujenga like over and over and over, sindio? Yani, so thank you, Sharon, for being my guest today. And guys, I hope that you've been built up by the conversation that we've talked about today. And, what you need to do is go ahead, subscribe, share with your loved ones. But even more importantly for us, share with your enemies, indio? Because you need to keep your enemies close. We love you guys. Thank you for joining us for the DJ Mo's podcast. Peace. We love you and we're out.